Have you ever wondered how a peace agreement could leave both sides dissatisfied? Today, we're going to dive into the paradox of the Tashkent Agreement. This intriguing chapter of history marked the end of the Indo-Pak War of 1965. Yet it left a bitter taste in the mouths of both nations. With both sides disheartened, it truly was a paradoxical peace accord. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the nuances of this historical event. The seeds of the Tashkent Agreement were sown during the Indo-Pak War of 1965. At the heart of this conflict lay the contentious region of Kashmir, a bone of contention between India and Pakistan since their partition in 1947. The war erupted in the August of 1965, a culmination of skirmishes that had begun in April that year in the Rann of Kutch region. As the battles escalated, the international community watched with bated breath. The prospect of an all-out war between two nations that were barely 2 decades old was alarming, to say the least. India and Pakistan, both at the time members of the Commonwealth, found themselves in a situation where their dispute was not just a regional issue, but an international concern. The war was characterized by significant military engagements, including Operation Gibraltar and Operation Grand Slam, which marked some of the fiercest battles fought on the subcontinent. The war lasted for 17 days, a relatively short period, but one that saw intense combat and significant loss of life on both sides. The world stood in unanimous concern, fearing the possible escalation and the destabilizing effect it could have on South Asia. In response to this, international pressure mounted on both countries to cease hostilities. The United Nations Security Council, in its Resolution 211, demanded an immediate ceasefire. Additionally, the United Kingdom and the United States, both significant global players, applied diplomatic pressure, urging both nations to return to a state of peace. The war ended officially on September 23, 1965, with a United Nations mandated ceasefire. However, the ceasefire did not resolve the underlying issues, and it was clear that more needed to be done to establish a lasting peace. The world continued to watch as India and Pakistan, their populations weary of war, navigated the uncertain path towards resolution. With the world watching, both countries were pushed towards the negotiation table. This marked the beginning of the Tashkent journey, a journey that would see the signing of a peace agreement that continues to shape Indo-Pak relations to this day. On January 10, 1966, the Tashkent Agreement was signed, but what did it entail? This historic peace accord was a result of 2 weeks of intense negotiations, facilitated by the then-Soviet Premier Alexei Kosygin. The agreement was signed in Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan, then a part of the Soviet Union. The key players were the Indian Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri and the President of Pakistan, Ayub Khan. The Tashkent Declaration, as it is also known, aimed to restore normal and peaceful relations between India and Pakistan following the 1965 war. The terms of the agreement were clear and concise. Both nations agreed to withdraw all armed forces to positions held prior to August 5, 1965, effectively restoring the status quo ante. This was to be achieved by February 25, 1966. Alongside this, the agreement entailed an exchange of prisoners of war, and both countries pledged to work towards improving bilateral relations. They agreed to refrain from the threat and use of force in violation of the UN Charter. The agreement also recognized the need to establish cooperative, neighborly relations based on mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. The role of the Soviet Union, and particularly Premier Alexei Kosygin, cannot be understated. He acted as a mediator between the two nations, facilitating dialogue and fostering an environment conducive to the signing of this agreement. In essence, the Tashkent Agreement was an attempt to restore peace and foster goodwill between two nations that had just emerged from the throes of a bitter war. It represented a shared commitment to peaceful coexistence and respect for international law and the United Nations Charter. Despite these noble intentions, the agreement was not universally well received. The public, politicians, and even some military leaders had mixed reactions to the terms of the agreement. Many felt that the sacrifices made during the war had not translated into tangible gains at the negotiation table. The agreement, however, was met with mixed reactions back home. The ink had barely dried on the Tashkent Agreement before controversy erupted. Just as the sun rises after a long night, so too did the dawn of a new era begin with the signing of the Tashkent Agreement in January 1966. However, this dawn was not without its clouds. In India and Pakistan, the reception of the Tashkent Agreement was as diverse as the nations themselves. In India, the agreement was met with a mix of relief, skepticism, and outright condemnation. Many hailed it as a significant step towards peace, while others criticized it as a sellout, arguing that it failed to address the root causes of conflict. The political controversy surrounding the agreement was further amplified by the sudden death of the Indian Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, merely hours after signing the agreement. The circumstances of his death remain shrouded in mystery, fueling speculative theories and casting a long shadow over the Tashkent Agreement. In Pakistan, the agreement was also met with a mixed reaction. While some lauded it as a diplomatic victory, others criticized it for lacking concrete measures to resolve the Kashmir issue. The agreement's stipulation for a mutual withdrawal of troops from the contested region was seen by some as a concession, leading to political unrest and eventually contributing to the fall of President Ayub Khan's government. Despite the controversy, the Tashkent Agreement marked a significant shift in Indo-Pak relations. It signaled the first attempt at diplomatic resolution post-war, setting a precedent for future peace talks. It represented the recognition on both sides that conflict could not be resolved through military means alone, and that dialogue and diplomacy were vital for peace. The Tashkent Agreement was not a panacea for all the ailments plaguing Indo-Pak relations. However, it provided a glimmer of hope, a possibility of a future where dialogue, not war, would be the norm. It was a stepping stone, albeit a controversial one, towards a more peaceful subcontinent. The Tashkent Agreement proved to be a turning point in Indo-Pak relations. Over 5 decades later, the legacy of the Tashkent Agreement is still debated. A peace accord that was meant to put an end to the Indo-Pak conflict of the mid-20th century. It stands today as a symbol of the intricate dance between diplomacy and national interests. The Tashkent Agreement, signed in the winter of 1966, was a significant turning point in the Indo-Pak relations. The agreement's main objective was to restore normal relations between the two estranged nations, and it did succeed, albeit temporarily. But the tranquility was short-lived. Despite the promises of peace, the tensions between India and Pakistan did not dissolve completely. The agreement, while a monumental step, was unable to resolve the underlying disputes that sparked the conflict in the first place. Fast forward to the present day, the ripples of Tashkent can still be felt in the Indo-Pak relations. The two nations continue to grapple with territorial disputes, diplomatic standoffs, and intermittent bouts of hostility. The peace accord, while it brought temporary relief, could not erase deep-rooted animosities. The Tashkent Agreement also serves as a reminder of the inherent complexities of peace negotiations. It underlines the fact that diplomatic talks, while essential, are not a panacea for deep-seated conflicts. They are a step, often the first of many, towards resolution and reconciliation. But despite its apparent shortcomings, the legacy of the Tashkent Agreement is not entirely bleak. It set a precedent for diplomatic dialogue between India and Pakistan. It highlighted the importance of international mediation in resolving conflicts, and perhaps most importantly, it served as a stark reminder that war is not a sustainable solution to disagreements between nations. As we reflect on the legacy of the Tashkent Agreement, we must remember that peace is a journey, not a destination. It requires patience, understanding, and above all, a willingness to compromise. The Tashkent Agreement may not have achieved lasting peace, but it certainly paved the way for continued dialogue. The Tashkent Agreement remains a testament to the complexities of peace negotiations. It serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing quest for peace and the challenges that lie in its path. Today, we explored the intriguing story of the Tashkent Agreement. We began our journey by delving into the Prelude to Tashkent, understanding the mounting tensions between India and Pakistan that led to the 1965 war. The war was a turning point, a catalyst that created the urgency for a peace agreement. We then navigated through the intricacies of the Tashkent Agreement itself. Signed in January 1966 under the auspices of the Soviet Union, it marked a significant moment in history. It was this agreement that mandated the cessation of hostilities and the withdrawal of troops, promising to restore normal diplomatic relations and peace between the two nations. Next, we examined the aftermath of the agreement. Despite the promise of peace, the agreement was met with mixed reactions. While it ended the war, it also sparked political controversies and unrest in both countries, ultimately leading to the death of Indian Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri under mysterious circumstances. Finally, we reflected on the legacy of the Tashkent Agreement. It remains a testament to the complex and often tumultuous relationship between India and Pakistan. Despite its controversies, the agreement holds a significant place in history, showcasing the eternal quest for peace amid conflict. In the end, the Tashkent Agreement serves as a reminder that peace is a process, not an event.